Are you all set over here?
Yeah.
Thanks. Really want this duck to make a lot of noise. It still doesn't do it. Want that duck to do it. I'm going to figure that out by the next one because it'll be the last time I get to do that. All right, welcome to 2026. The entire 25 year went by so quick. We had what 21 meetings last year. So it was a good year. Got a lot done. So now we have a new year and we're starting off well. We've got a tree permit tonight on the thing, but before we get going into that, start with the roll call.
Commissioner Rana. Vice Chair Walton.
Here.
Chair Woodson.
Here.
Commissioner St. John.
Here.
Commissioner Chang.
Here.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you very much. And as I mentioned before, is Commissioner Barron, she online? Or not?
I do not see Commissioner Barron online.
Commissioner Barron is excused tonight, so she won't be here. Do we have anybody else, just so I know?
Actually, she just popped in.
Cool.
So.
Do we have anybody else? Just I'm curious.
We have a couple other people online. So we will need to open up each item for public comment.
Thank you. All right, next we have is the moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Walton. Would you take the honors, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Next up is we have special announcements and communications from the floor. So that would be any items that the public has that is on an item that is not on the agenda for today. So pretty much anything in the world except the tree permit for Fortag. You could talk about. Anybody in main audience here? Nothing? No New Year's wishes? Best comments about the surf line and the new construction traffic being open? All right. What about on the public side online? Is there anybody?
I don't see anybody who's raised their hand. Chair Woodson.
Thank you very much. All right, going once, going twice. Public comment, communication floor is closed. Next up is ex parte communications for quasi judicial matters. Anything internal from the commission that you would like to raise over the last month? Silence. Okay. All right, we have nothing there. Moving on, I think on the consent agenda, as usual, we have main thing is the approval of the minutes from December. Are there any updates or comments or changes that from the minutes from last month that somebody would like to raise?
I'd like to make a motion that the minutes be approved as written.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner St. John.
I'll second.
Vice Chair Walton gets the second.
Oh.
Chair, before there's a vote on the minutes, I have to ask, is Commissioner Barron participating tonight?
She is not. We've
Okay.
already discussed that. So she is, if she participates, she is only participating as a resident of Marina or as a resident.
Oh, right. Okay, so not voting.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
She's not, and also not taking part in the conversation except for during open public comment period on the agenda item.
Chair, how about the conflict of interest on me? On the minutes, December 18th? Should it be amended?
I have to look at it for a second to see. Okay. Well, interest commissioner members Chang and Woodson are recused due to proximity.
The tree.
Yeah, I
Oh,
thought,
Forte.
Yeah, so I think that that's actually, that's not on the minutes, that's,
I thought that's.
no, but it is an
Okay.
issue. Rito.
I'm sorry, that was.
So not on the minutes for December, but for the agenda items for today, there's a conflict of interest statement on Mr. Chang and myself as being recused from proximity to the primary residence of the.
I can explain that if you like, Chair.
What's that?
I can help explain if there's a question about that.
Well, there's not a question because I live over 1,000, both of us, I live over 1,000 feet away from the boundary of the project line. So I'm not covered. And I-
Right. I just mean that it doesn't, I'm trying to clarify that it doesn't have to do with the minutes from, the item we're talking about now is the minutes from last meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay. So,
We have a motion.
yes, then please explain.
We can do that when we get to the item. Why don't we do that so we stay in order?
Okay, so. All right, so going back to it, which is what I thought, that didn't pertain to the minutes. So. I believe we still have a motion and a second. To approve the minutes,
I'm sorry, who made the second? Chair Woodson.
Vice Chair Walton.
So, so the question still, Commissioner Rana,
No, do you approve the minutes?
I'm okay.
so I'm doing a roll call to approve the minutes. So I'm going to call each commissioner's name and you can say yes or no to approve the minutes. So Commissioner Rana, Vice Chair Walton,
Yes.
Chair Woodson,
Yes.
Commissioner St. John,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So next thing we have, which I believe is the public hearing on the on the Fort Ord Regional Trail and Greenway. So I guess we do have the conflict of interest issue that need to explain and understand because I don't. So please. Over to you.
Yeah, I can explain. So that is, I believe you're referring to a reference in the staff report for the tree permit item you just opened. And that was determined rather late today to be an error, an inadvertent and overcautious inclusion in the staff report. So we've deleted that. I assume you're looking at a version that shows that in strikeout and replaced with language just to clarify for your benefit and the benefit of the public that there is actually no conflict of interest. So hopefully that
And I think
addresses the issue.
So I think what's happened is it still is showing up in the printed agenda from the downloaded version that was online.
Okay.
But to your point, Guido and I talked about it this afternoon, a couple hours ago, and realized that, and we went ahead and removed it. So yes, I know about the strike through. I think, yes, we just needed to raise it to the public to let them know that that was an error in the agenda that's still online. And that
Well,
but-
I'm in the agenda that's online.
maybe it's,
All right, let me just clarify. So it's been our practice for a number of years to print off packets. So I think some of the commissioners have the printed off packet, and then we've subsequently uploaded the correct strike through, and so that's where the discrepancy is. So we're good in terms of the recusal. All the commissioners here are able to vote on the item, and so we can proceed.
and that does make sense because you're right. I've got the one online pulled up, Seth, and it does have the strike through
Okay.
with the. So. So that is our confusion for the year. No more,
No more. Sounds
no more
good.
confusion.
That's-
First meeting out the gate and then the first agenda item, and we're done for the year. I think that's a success story. All right. Now that we have that done, I think we go ahead and we'll do the presentation, Phil, on the Fortag.
Thank you. Guido, did you want us?
Yeah, I can pull it up. One second.
that mild anxiety spike, we can get back to the project. So I am Phil Angelo. I'm Senior Planner with City of Marina, and I'll be presenting staff's report on the Fortag California Avenue segment tree removal permit. Next slide. So this is probably information many of you may already have, but Fortag is the Fort Ord Regional Trail and Greenway. It would consist of a 28-mile trail network, 3 segments of which are funded and or under construction. These include the California Avenue segment, which is the subject of the tree removal permit before the commission tonight. The network would be an active pedestrian and bicycle corridor that connects the various communities of the Monterey Peninsula together, and to open space areas like the Fort Ord National Monument and the Monterey Bay Sanctuary Scenic Trail. So the Fortag project has been in development for a number of years. In 2014, the city joined other local entities in partnering with TMC, or the Transportation Agency of Monterey County, to build the regional trail. As the lead agency of the project, TMC certified an EIR Fortag in 2020. And in 2024, the Delray Oaks segment of the trail began construction, which brings us today to where we're considering the California Avenue portion. Next. And this is a vicinity map that shows the California Avenue segment in red. It would be on property that's owned by the city of Marina. And after construction is complete, the city would continue ownership and maintenance of the trail. Next. And this has both the demolition extent for the project and a summary of the tree removal. There are 151 ordinance-sized trees that are in the vicinity of the project, so within or adjacent to the trail. 94 of these trees are in good health and would either be removed or potentially impacted by the project as work would occur within the drip line of the trees. Of these 94 healthy trees, 56 were initially proposed for removal. However, after a tree committee hearing, the applicant was able to preserve 1 additional tree. So now 55 healthy trees would be removed. The majority of the trees being removed are coast live oaks, and none are designated as landmark trees. So as previously mentioned, the project went before the city's tree committee, who considered it on October 8th, 2025. In accordance with the city's tree preservation ordinance, typically after the tree committee makes a recommendation on the project, the community development director would take the final action on it. However, in this case, it's been referred to the planning commission for final action, given the scale of the project and to provide additional transparency. The permit would be subject to conditions that are outlined in the staff report, which include TAMC paying a fee of $55,000 in lieu of replanting the 55 healthy trees that are being removed, in addition to tree protection measures and compliance with the mitigation measures in the certified EIR. Next. So the tree committee recommended 2 specific conditions for the project. The first was that the applicant provide a tree protection plan and measures for the trees that were in the immediate vicinity of the project, but that wouldn't be removed. The applicant submitted those measures, and they've been incorporated both into the conditions of approval and in the project plans. The second was that the applicant identify if there were any additional healthy coast live oak or Monterey cypress trees with a diameter at breast height of 24 inches or greater that could be preserved. The applicants reviewed the plans and identified 8 of these trees. However, only 1 of them could be preserved without compromising the trail alignment or design, or relocate an area that would increase impacts to Monterey Gilia habitat. I don't want to go through every single tree, but as an example, the 3 that are in red stars here couldn't be retained without compromising the trail's connection both to the new bus stop at Imgen to the east and to the Jerry Smith portion of the Fortag Trail to the south. And that concludes staff's presentation. I believe TAMC has an additional presentation, but this would be the staff's recommended motion.
Thanks, Phil, very much. All right, so tonight we'll have Fortag present, and then all the commissioners just provide comments, and then we'll open it up to the public, and then come back to the commissioners, and then we will then take a vote on that.
That's good.
It's the order for tonight. So, welcome.
Now it's on. Hi, my name is Yannicka Strauss. I'm a senior transportation planner with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, and I'm the project manager for the Fortag California Avenue segment. And tonight I have with us our consultant, GHD, who's been working on the final design and right of way for this project. So I will actually turn it over to Shannon to deliver the presentation.
Thank you, Yannicka. I'm Shannon Agno. I'm a senior transportation engineer and project manager at GHD. And I have our arborist, Nate Oakley, with us in case there's any questions. I'll be giving most of the presentation, but he's here as backup to answer any questions you guys might have. So thank you for having us. So thanks for that great presentation, Phil. I don't have to go through a lot of the stuff that's in here. These are the project partners. TMC is the lead agency for the project. GHD has been working on the design for this project. Next slide, please. So today we'll go through a little bit about the vision of Fortag, how we've gotten from the concept of Fortag through the design to where we are today, the permitting, and then answer any questions you might have. Next slide. So the vision for Fortag, I won't iterate too much that Phil has already said, but the idea of Fortag is to connect the communities around Monterey Bay to each other and to open space via accessible paths for biking, walking, rolling, strolling. And the original founders of Fortag, Scott Waltz and Fred Watson, have been with us through this whole process, helping reiterate the vision and make sure that the design aligns with their vision. So how does the vision for Fortag filter down into the design? First of all, we look at accessibility. We want to build a path that is accessible to all people, wheelchairs included, wide enough for two cyclists to ride side by side and pass each other comfortably, with grades that are less than 5% that are traversable. We look for opportunities to make safe and convenient connections to other trails and to roadways. And then along the way, we try to foster environmental stewardship, working to avoid any habitat impacts that we can, as well as tree impacts, as well as foster stewardship and a connection to the land. So when we, as Phil mentioned, this project has an approved EIR and 30% design and an MOU from the cities involved. We came into the project at 30%, and the first thing we did was head out to the field with Scott and Fred, City of Marina, and walk the potential alignment. We had our environmental surveys completed. As you guys know, the biggest issue in Marina is the Monterey Gilia habitat. So I'm sure you guys are very familiar. On this map, the blue circles and dots in the right-hand side are all of the Gilia occurrences in that little city parcel there in between Imgen Road and 8th. So we started working our way through that area, looking at an alignment that would be accessible and that would try to avoid that Gilia as much as possible. The 30% design envisioned a bridge over Imgen Road. As we were out there, it became pretty apparent that we would have pretty big impacts to the Gilia habitat. The Gilia habitat is not only the Gilia occurrences, but anywhere out there is considered potential Gilia habitat. So as what you're seeing in the lower right-hand side was our evaluation of where we would put the bridges. And what you can see is that the trail would be built up really high to get over the road, which would create large slopes or large retaining walls that would be visually impacting the corridor as well as impacting the Gilia habitat. So along came the Imgen Parkway expansion project, and we saw an opportunity to pair up with that in a different context. So the Imgen Parkway project now kind of creates a road that's more controlled, traffic controlled, less like it was before, where it's just an open space area. So we saw an opportunity to do an at-grade crossing that would be less impact to the Gilia habitat, less impact overall, and provide a better connection to the bus stops and to the additional trails. So those are just the kind of things that we're doing during 30% design refinement. We're also looking at the other pieces. This is just an example of how we refine our design. Next slide. And then we look at areas where we have constraints. The first time we walked the site out there, a concerned resident from the neighborhood came out and was asking about the trees right along this corridor. So this is a tree right in front of the equestrian center. The manager of the equestrian center came out there on our second site walk and said, hey, you guys are going to protect this tree, right? And we said, well, we'll work to do with what we can. So in this area, we worked with the city to figure out kind of what they were okay with in terms of how close the path can be to the street, as well as a minimum width. So we want to generally provide a 12-foot wide path. That's what FORTAG has envisioned. At this point, near an intersection, we're willing to pinch that down to 8 feet to get around a tree like this. It's very context sensitive whether or not we can do that. This isn't an area where people will be slowing down and starting from an intersection. Here's another example at Patton Parkway. There was recently some trees removed a couple of years ago. And then there are some trees that still remain out there. And so we worked to get the trail around 2 existing trees out there with a nice little plaza area that can enjoy the shade from that, as well as that's one area we can plant another tree. So with that, this is, you might have to click a couple times. I forgot this one is animated. I'm used to giving the presentation myself with the clicker. So with that, I think we've come up with a trail that has really great connection opportunities through the city of Marina. We heard some really great feedback at our public outreach events about people excited to use this trail and get out to other trails in the area.
And there's more.
And I know there's more.
Right there.
Yeah, next slide, please.
Actually, hold on to that.
Yeah, sure.
Let's go back to that one. Just, can you walk through because that's actually a very good slide, because I think that shows the connection pieces.
Yeah.
Can you walk through this slide with the group? That way I just don't have to come back to it
Yes,
later.
yes. Yeah, so as we start in the lower left-hand corner, there is a dashed blue line that is going to be the Jerry Smith Trailhead Connector. That project is funded through a federal grant in design as well. We've been coordinating with that project that TMC is also managing. As we approach Imjin Road, what's not shown on here is the now existing roundabout at Imjin Road and Imjin Parkway, but there is a multi-use path connector over to the existing trail and then the new trail on Imjin Parkway. So that's what you're seeing in the solid blue there. The FORTAG trail will provide a pedestrian hybrid beacon crossing. That is the one at Marina Heights Drive, where you push a button and then you get a signal. So that will be how the bikes and peds will get across the street. And then they'll continue through the open space parcel, working their way over. The main trail will connect down to 8th Street, which has a future connection along 8th Street as part of the FORTAG trail, and then works its way up California Avenue. We recognize that several people are already using a connection to 9th Street through this area, and so we are providing a little lake to get over there, but it's not part of the main trail. So the trail will navigate up California Avenue, providing a connection at the existing path at 9th Street in front of the equestrian center, and work its way north to Imjin Parkway. I should mention all of this area on California Avenue, I'm sure you guys know, is currently they're planning for widening the road and finishing out that section of California Avenue. That is an adjacent project to ours, and then we are building the trail next to it. So the widening of California ideally will be done before this trail goes in. Then there'll be a connection at 9th Street, and then we will provide a ramp to connect over at Beacon. When we get to Imjin Parkway, that is also an an adjacent project to ours. So there will be protected bicycle and pedestrian elements of the new signal and turn pockets that are going in there when that signal is redesigned. So we've been coordinating back and forth with that team as well. From there, the trail takes off on the west side of California Avenue, heading north through the Cypress Knolls area. As we developed this alignment, we looked for the largest thing over here is the grade changes, kind of dipping down and coming back up. We worked with the city. The city has also envisioned a future fire station at some point in this area, as well as there is now a cell tower at the intersection of 3rd Avenue. So we had some constraints to work with. We generally provided a trail that is separated from the path, separated from the road, that's more comfortable for all ages and abilities, and attempted not to dip down too far and come back up. That makes it hard to ride and walk. So we go through the open space over there and then work our way up to Patton Parkway. There will also be a connection to the pedestrian hybrid beacon at Marina Heights Drive through that.
Thank you.
And the bike path that is along Patton Parkway today. At Patton Parkway, there will be a push button for a rapid flashing beacon crossing to get cyclists back onto the Class 2 bike lanes. Pedestrians will be able to continue north onto the sidewalk, but the bikes will get into the Class 2 bike lanes. We are putting in a small portion of connecting the bike lane in that area as well. As for other crossings, there are also 2 crossings that we're proposing down on 8th Street to connect to CSUMB. And those will be, there's a pedestrian push button, bike push button at that intersection there with California and 8th. Okay. So with that proposed design, as Phil mentioned, there were originally 56 removals and 38 trees that will be impacted but protected using the guidelines that we've put within our plans provided by our arborist. Of those, here's the breakdown of what those trees include. The next slide, please. At the tree committee, they asked us to take a second look at trees that were over 24 inches diameter at breast height that were coastal live oak, Monterey cypress trees, and Monterey. Those are the 2, right? Am I forgetting one? Okay. And with that, we found these 8 trees, and we looked at opportunities to try to save any of these, and we found one that we can protect with our tree protection measures. So next slide. So that brings the count down to 55. This is just kind of showing how those recounts worked out. Now, why are we asking to pay the in lieu fee? Any area that we're going through, as I mentioned, is potential Gilia habitat, which is just not compatible with replanting trees in this area. So we hope that we can find a way to use those funds and plant elsewhere. I think that's pretty much it. So thank you. And there's a link to our project website here. And if you guys have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Right. I guess before she sits down, if there are any questions for her that you all have first, maybe we'll just have you sitting down and standing up and sitting down and standing up.
Yeah, no worries.
Go ahead, Commissioner Chang.
Right, thank you, Chair. And you mentioned that the 55 trees will be taken down and will be replaced, and you mentioned will be plants elsewhere. And what is
That's
elsewhere? Could you define that?
that is up to the city. Maybe Phil, you can answer that one.
So our tree removal ordinance allows, in lieu of replanting on site when there are constraints, that the applicant provide an in lieu fee that would go into the city's mitigation bank to locate other sites to replant the trees on.
So that would be the same thing, I think, Commissioner Chang, it's similar to what we've done on some of the other developments like Surf, where we placed some trees on the site, but then others, we've set aside the money. And like at the planning commission side, specifically for SURF, we actually asked the money to be separated and segregated specifically for the Del Monte Reservation corridor only.
Mhm.
But so the money just is going back to the city into a set aside fund for tree mitigation and tree planting in the city.
I know there's the money for that. I just thinking whether we could have the the replanting of a tree within the same neighborhood instead of not defining elsewhere. It could be outside the neighborhood. I mean, if I remove a tree in this area, I'd like to have another tree replanted in the same area. Can we do?
Yes, so I think
redefine-
let's bring that staff wise, let's table that.
Okay,
Then come back to that comment, that question internally for our internal discussion, because we could put a condition on that we want a certain percentage of that to go back to the areas. For example, along A Street right there in the
Mhm.
open area, it's closer to the street that's outside of the project area. So put like street trees to kind of line that area because that's a pretty barren intersection area.
Right.
Mhm.
So I think when we come back and we can talk about that, but yes, the answer is we can do that. We can
Alright.
set it up as a condition.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. 28 miles of trails, of which this is 2.1 miles. How many years are we looking at for completion of 28 miles of trails?
We don't have a direct answer for that at this time. If you want to speak to that, Yannicka, the TMC is attempting to fund one section at a time as they can.
Yeah, that's right. We're pursuing grant funding as we can for each segment. And so, yeah, we don't have an ultimate time period yet, unfortunately. Yeah, funds are limited for this kind of thing.
Right.
This side of it is very expected to have for firm long term. This section, this one, 4 months.
For the construction? Yeah, our target is to begin construction in August of this year, 2026, and complete within 2 years.
Thank you, Chair. I just have one question. Can you give us the average cost per mile for this trail? Or a approximate cost per mile, is it? So far.
This segment this segment of trail is 1.4 miles and the total cost is $10.2 million. So $10 million a mile.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll withhold my comment till later. I'll let the public speak first. Right, so I thank you so much. I'll let you sit down. See what it comes back to. At this point, we'll go ahead and open it to, actually, I think I'm going to open it this time to public comment online first.
Okay.
If there are people online.
I don't see anybody's raised their hand, Chair Woodson.
All right. Going once, going twice. I'll come back to it in a minute. We'll try it one more time. So now we'll open it to public comment here in the audience. Have all these people. It's just emotional support today. Okay, so I'll go back one more time. Nobody has had now a chance to wake up on the online.
That's correct, Chair Woodson.
All right. All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment on this. A little bit different than when you were in Canyon Del Rey. Frog Pond was a little more contentious than this. All right, so coming back to this, my question or comment, I guess I understand the alignment on the engineering side. I understand where you chose, and it's my kind of issue that I've been thinking, kind of debating in my head is, where do we get to Gilead aside? How do we get to the alignment of the path? And it's not about the alignment. This is about the trees themselves. And so I'm kind of bringing it back to alignment wise. And I guess maybe we didn't, I'll just take it that over the last couple of years, we've had a couple of information briefs, but we were never asked to provide comment. But now all of a sudden, we're getting asked to approve the tree permit on something that we had no input on the alignment side of it. And there are questions on the alignment. And that's where my frustration is. So I'm not going to really address them. I'm just going to say that I personally have some comments that I wish that we had been asked to provide more support and asked on the site visits before we get to a point where, oh, hey, by the way, here's the tree permit removal. And that's really what we're supposed to be focusing on today. And so I think that as you move forward and you look at the other areas and the other sections of this, just kind of keep that in mind that some of the commissions that maybe at the time we didn't realize that we would have to be there, but maybe err on side of judgment of involvement and engagement with us instead of just here's a presentation. I think that's it. And a lot of it's because I've been around here probably longer than most of the commission right now. And so I've kind of watched this process develop over the last few years. I still am concerned on just the alignment. I think it's on the tree removal. It's the section between Patton Parkway and Imgen, and ensuring that what we are removing, that really is the best path, because I know that it goes in 100 feet from the road, and then it has to come back out because of the 3rd Street cell tower. And then it cuts back in. And at the same time, we're trying to keep it off the main bike path that's already there. And I think I just wanted to understand some of the logic. I know you talked about you want to keep access in a safe kind of direction. So instead of on the highway, on the roadway, you want to open up to everybody so that they don't have to worry about the bike path with the traffic next to it. I mean, outside of that, I just got some of the logic behind just the alignment decisions. If you don't mind kind of giving us some of that background on that, because we weren't involved in any of that discussion.
Yeah, Rita, I don't know if you can pull up that section of the map. We created a set of slides that are kind of the parking lot, if you will, at the end of the presentation.
Sure.
And that would be probably, so in those map ones at the end.
Here or?
Yeah, we'll keep going from here. So these are snapshots from our tree removal plan that you guys have a copy of. So moving forward, yeah, 1 or 2 more. Yeah,
That's
so
right.
this is where it starts if you go one back. So the vision for ForTag was to go through and connect through greenway areas to connect people with open space. So generally, that's what we're trying to do, is create a path that is off street, away from the street. We obviously have these constrained areas where here we need to connect to the intersection. It's a steep slope drop off. So we're kind of hugging the road there for a while. Then we have an opportunity where there's actually an existing dirt road to hop off and kind of veer away. There's also a stormwater basin in this area, so we needed to get behind that. So then we come to the next sheet. Zigzagging kind of on that existing dirt road that's there. And then again, as that starts to cross over California, then we kind of veer down and stay away from the road as much as we can. And then we end up needing to hug the road because, like you mentioned, the cell tower is there. This is where originally, potentially, the city envisioned a fire station sort of in this area off of the south side of 3rd, was one of the constraints at some point. There's also a stormwater infiltration area that is down below where our trail is going to be connecting on 3rd.
And this is one of the areas is right here. So
Yeah.
Looking at it directly across from kind of almost dead center, we've got the tree removals where the path is relatively straight a little bit right there. And so for me, it comes down a little bit and then it makes kind of a slight left hand and then goes straight and then drops a little bit to the right. It feels like if we went from an alignment perspective, why not go, or is it just that if you went further in and straightened it out there, you end up with trees on the other side?
Yeah, exactly. So our arborist went out there and surveyed all the trees that are directly in the footprint of the project or right adjacent to. If you've ever been out there, it is like Tree City. There's a ton of trees out there, so it's kind of a trade-off of like, if you move the path over this way, you're going to be hitting other trees. I will say we did look at an area that was kind of where you see that really dense grouping of trees, just to the north side of Marina Heights Drive, in between some
Right.
buildings there. There were a couple of dead trees that were in that area. And so we're like, oh, is this an area where we can zigzag in and kind of get through this dead tree area? But grading wise, it doesn't make sense, because we'd need to be down lower where that stormwater infiltration area is, as well as, there's just a lot of other trees in that area. So there's just kind of trading here for there.
No, I get it. And had we started this 25 years ago, it would have been almost open because over half of those trees didn't exist. I mean, that's how fast because of the way the water infiltrates off the road, it's a very fast growing area. And I mean, most of those areas, if you go back and look at the photos from when Patton Park, before Imgen or before California was even made a cut through, that was all very open area. So these trees have propagated themselves nicely over the last few years. So I think that was my one, and I think you kind of explained if you go to the next slide, Guido, which I think takes it to the end. Oh, one more.
Yeah, we focused in on this area, but there's one more sheet. Yeah.
Yeah, the next sheet is the corner. I think now when you did the presentation, that explains a little bit of the rolling, the curves right there. Because I didn't quite
Yeah.
understand that when I was looking at it.
Yeah,
How
there's
you
a
created that.
stormwater basin that's on the street side that we need to get around. And then there is a Gilia patch to the north side, so we kind of curved in between two of those.
Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't realize the Gilia was right there, right inside that base boundary. Right there. That's one of there's a house, quad that's directly to the north of the blue line. That was one of the houses that was burnt. So, all right, those were my big questions that I had. It was more just kind of an understanding of how we kind of got from 2 years ago to today and how we got here. Any other questions from the group? No. Okay.
And I really only have one staff question, and that is with respect to the tree committee resolution where it says that they've approved 56 trees. I'm wondering if that should be 55 or if that's just what it was before the decision was made. Is that page 105? Is it?
Yep.
The tree committee resolution would say 56 because
Okay,
that was the number that went before them at that time.
And they put the
One,
condition on top, right?
yeah, to reevaluate and see if you could save more.
Just making sure it was accurate. Thank you.
Is this appropriate time for just comments or were you
Yes.
still in questions? Initially, looking over this entire plan, I was perplexed to begin with, and then I went over it a couple more times. Since that time, I've visited and walked the site and looked around and saw quite a nice greenway through there, lots of trees and lots of nature and birds and everything. And after that, I just had I don't know if it's a philosophical question I'm asking myself or whether it's something else, but we're going to create a greenway so that people can walk in nature amongst the trees, but we're going to tear down 55 trees in order to enable that to go through. I don't know what the other 28 miles looks like as, you know, in this regard. But my comment is it's kind of an imbalance for me, and $55,000 worth of new trees somewhere else doesn't seem equate equally for me. So I'm gonna have to give this a lot of thought before we vote tonight.
Commissioner Chang?
Thank you, Chair. Well, first I want to have to say, I just moved in here 2 years ago and surprised to see these four tech projects. I think connecting within the city and for 28 miles and allow people to walk from one city to another city. And my question is this, when I first heard about removing 55 trees, kind of scary. But again, I'm thanks to TMAC willing to provide funding for replanting. So it's a good thing. And so my question is, will we have a tree audit committee after the removing and replanting? So just to make sure those trees that we retain are able to survive and still able to have those trees around and have an audit team to go around and check on all the trees. You know, just a suggestions. And the other thing is I do not know the time frame of this project, the FORTEC. We are talking about tree removal right now. And so what is the next thing we need to do? And have the community been informed? And how do we get the community involved and let them know what we are doing? So it'll be nice to have a kind of timetable that at least the residents who are affected, they know what's going on. And I think it's a very good program, I'll say, you know, in connecting all the city together. And because eventually it come to design of the trail, I think it's good that committee involved in it. They want to see how the trail being done and any restroom, any lights, street lights for safety reasons, you know, so that's my thought. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Rana, do you have any questions? Comments?
Small question, yes. This area, the Patton Parkway and California Avenue, there are other plans also in this area, other development plans. What is the impact of this project on those plans which are going to be there? Because there is development going to take place in that area. Such.
I think that's a staff question, but I believe that there's for anything, are you referring to the Cypress Knolls area? For any of that area, there's going to be a setback from California Avenue, as I understand. So this project was always envisioned to be within the setback area between the development and the roadway.
And that development, it has been taken into consideration that this project is upcoming and they know about that.
Yeah, when we eventually do the master plan for Cypress Knolls, we'll clearly take the FORTAG issues into consideration, so.
And I would add that the same thing with fire station. I think the latest draft on the fire station is actually going to move from third up to the tentatively, potentially the corner of Imgen. And so then it would require a reconfiguration right there a little bit, but that would just be part of the construction.
Yeah, well, those are good points. We will definitely have to work with the FORTAG folks to address those issues, so.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So as you can see, I mean, I'm not the only one. I mean, it's a really, I've been thinking about this now for a week, spent a lot of time thinking about this issue. And I get how we got here. Don't agree with it. Because I think we've been put into a interesting kind of dilemma of having to approve a tree permit to remove something which tacitly then means that we as a commission completely agree with every single part of the design, even though we had zero input or weren't even asked for our input into it. But yet we're asking to approve the tree part of it. And so I think my concerns are you've kind of heard it from four of my fellow commissioners of where the challenge we have are. So I I just don't think we can do anything about it, but I just want you to really emphasize that this is created probably one of the more intractable thought processes for most of the commission that we've had to deal with over the last couple of years. For something that shouldn't have been a reason. That said, it has been approved. The city has pushed this forward. And so we do have it before us, and the tree commission has approved this with conditions which they met. So that's how we are. That's where we're at today. So the motion before us is, do we approve or disapprove the tree permit? I do have one more question on this.
Chair Woodson, is there an opportunity for staff or the FORTAG people to answer some of the questions from the commission? Is that possible?
Absolutely. And I had
Okay.
a staff question for you also.
Okay.
Maybe let me ask yours, because that may frame the answer to theirs if they want to provide any input. And so the answer would be that if for whatever reason, it did not pass today, then I don't even know where things would go at this point. What would be I don't even know where it would go.
I'm hopefully that alternate universe we don't have to step into.
Understand.
Hopefully we can address those issues today.
Right.
So we'd obviously have to work with the FORTAG folks to address whatever issues you have concerns about. So that's why I was hoping to
Okay.
be able
So
to
that's fine.
address. But you had a question of staff, Chair Woodson?
Yeah, no, fair enough. So I think really were there any others? No, that was my staff question.
Okay.
So,
So to address Commissioner Chang's question about outreach, yes, we will certainly work with the FORTAG folks in terms of publicizing this and continuing to work with them. Edry's on the call. He's been on the project for the whole 12 years he's worked for the city. In terms of potentially using the funds and where it would be replanted and all that, we can certainly, we have a PR firm the city has hired recently that we could definitely promote opportunities to use the funds that they're going to provide for different replantings. In terms of the development, we answered Commissioner Rana's question about definitely being mindful of the Cypress Knolls development, the fire station. I think those were the two main questions. And then Commissioner Jacobson, I wasn't clear about your concern about the $55,000 that are you wanting us to potentially look at that number again, work with them, or what would be the potential condition you would add to the motion?
I would rather see a plan for trees somewhere in the city now. That's 2 for 1 or whatever the normal process is, rather than money going into coffers. That's all.
Okay. That can be certainly part of the motion. I understood from the FORTAG folks that planting on the trail would not be limiting, but if the motion is to work with FORTAG to identify if a portion of the funds could be more towards replanting, that can certainly be part of the motion, just not part of the actual trail, if that's foreseeable.
I think it's our understanding that this in lieu fee would, yes, go into coffers, but that it would be, and we can support you in any way you need support, but it seems like that is a decision at the city and at the commission level about where those trees are planted. Am I?
So the question is, if the commission were to put a condition on the motion to say directing staff to work with the FORTAG group to potentially, and I don't want to put words in the commissioner's mouth, but instead of just paying all of the money, if there's an opportunity to replant trees in other parts of the city, so that we would subtract from the $55,000 and then identify ways to replant a certain number of trees. Is that a fair summary, Commissioner Jacobson?
That's a fair summary.
Okay, I think that's what the motion is trying to build.
Okay.
So the question is that possible?
To work with us on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can work with you. Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
So I think that my comment on that one, Commissioner Jacobson, is that usually when we put a condition on a 2 for 1, they're replanting, there usually it's a planting plus some level of maintenance support afterwards. And I'm not sure if we create a random spot and there's not a watering capability, there's not. So if I go back to the example that I was thinking about, if we put, let's say, a half dozen trees along 8th Street right there, that we don't have running water to that area. And so how would we promote the growth of that? And I think that becomes working with them is fine. And I'm fine with adding, I am fine with adding a condition that if we can find areas within the near vicinity of the construction site, that we can do that. But I don't want to also create something where we plant trees to plant trees in that area without ability to support that. And then 5 years from now, those trees. aren't-
Yeah, I was thinking more areas in the city, excuse me, that could be improved through trees. So for an example, by the library, they've been trying to plant those coastal oaks
Right.
and they don't survive. And so this may be an opportunity to put whatever, a 15 or a 24-inch.
Yeah, so as long
Pot
as,
in
I think
there
as long as
and
we
have
open it up to
better-
the city and from a staffing perspective, make a condition that we would like to try to see maybe 25% of the funds set aside to be used immediately. And the
Yes.
other 75% put aside in the coffers, but that the execution of it can be used any place within the city boundaries based on the public works and staff.
Where
recommendations.
feasible, where
Yeah.
feasible, where feasible.
Where feasible, where needed, yes.
I mean, I think that would be more logical than say that near vicinity of the construction site itself. The other reason I'm not sure about the near construction site is that some of those areas around there are still shade property development areas. And so there are still future growth development areas there. And I don't necessarily want to not improve that area, but if there's going to be future construction there, I don't want to go ahead and improve the landscaping there to then have to be worked around and taken out and then have to be put back. Were there any other open items?
No, I'm trying to write the motion so the commission can,
Okay.
so if you give me a minute, Chair, what's it?
Should I time you for the minute?
I actually would promote 50% rather than 25. I don't know.
Okay, where's the commission stand on a percent? If we set aside a percentage of it, which I'm fine with. 50% is fine? 50%, okay. So you think, all right, well, go ahead.
I think that handcuffs the city and several departments to immediately find a place for $25,000 worth of trees.
I guess it means what's immediately. I don't know. I don't think that's immediately, but it should be within reason.
It's immediate 1 year.
So, and I think that's where I would go back, and that's why I'm thinking, that's why I propose 25% within 1 year. I think adding a time frame within 1 year, I think that 1 year of the start of construction, so that they're not constrained to 1 year from today. It would be from the day that they break ground.
Well, they
Well,
said. it's a
12, 13
2-year
trees?
Yeah, they said it's a 2-year build, started in August, so that would be, you're saying within 1 year.
or we
from
should say
start.
during the construction period.
During the construction period.
construction
So
period.
that gives them 2 years.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to restrict it.
I don't either.
And then say, I don't want to put something that's owners, I say, oh, this is a phase thing. The trees have to come first. But yeah, if we said during the construction period, the intention is 25%. Or
But that's on the city, not,
it is on the city.
Yeah,
right. It's totally
Yeah.
on the city.
Well, the 25%, okay, so are we putting the condition that it's on the, are we asking for technically the planting, or are we asking?
how would we normally do it with the developer if we said you had to replace them 2 for 1?
And the developer is responsible for a 2-for-1. They're responsible for the site of the 2-for-1 on site. If it is in lieu of payment, then they pay the city and the city becomes responsible.
Got it.
Generally, even though every so often we have made conditions that if it's in lieu of payment, we've asked them to come back and provide maintenance support a couple of times.
Yeah.
So we've given kind of all three options in the past.
I have a draft language.
So why don't you read the draft of what you think?
So the base motion is there, and then just trying to work with the commission that the applicant would be required to work with the city to identify, if feasible, if 50% of the mitigation fee will go towards but replanting of trees in the city within the 2-year construction period.
So that's approximately 27 trees over 2 years. That seems reasonable.
Go on.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
No, actually, so if you read the bottom, the second paragraph, that becomes that's the condition that Guido just discussed.
Right.
So is that, and I think Guido on the 2-year construction period, again, I don't want to say construction is going to be faster or slower, but I would just say during the planned construction period.
I am a little unclear what the responsibility of TAMC would be in this condition.
And that's,
So you would work with us to identify potential using the $27,000 to identify trees that we could plant within the city of Marina.
Work with you to identify trees.
so this is.
Work with the city of Marina to identify places to plant trees that are reasonable based on your arborist recommendation, using that $27,000. So if we go out to the library, I think the commissioners already mentioned that the Coast Life Oaks are not working out there. So obviously we wouldn't recommend that. So we would use the portion of the money to buy the trees. You would buy the trees, and then we would work with you to plant those throughout the city of Marina. I think that's what the commission.
So,
making the
but I think
motion for.
what she's saying, and
So-
I can see it, is I think the option is that we just want a commitment to spend 50%, up to 50% of the funds during the period of performance of construction. I don't necessarily, I think to the point that you're making, I don't necessarily know that we don't want to add a condition of what is best around to support FORTAG kind of vision statements of bike paths, let's say, for example, that we want it there. I don't know if we necessarily need to tie it to FORTAG as much as we want to tie it to the city.
That's fine. You can give us the cash and we'll identify places to plant trees.
Yeah, I think that,
I mean, that's totally fine.
I think I'm fine with
That
that.
was the impression that,
Yeah,
that we
I think
had,
I'm,
was the in lieu fee.
we're asking FORTAG to come in and understand our city and where the best places are to put 50 trees. And I don't necessarily know, not that arborists can't do that, because that's what he does. But I think in this case, the real intention is that we are not just banking the money, that we want to make sure that half of the money is used.
And then it's used during the construction period.
Right.
Okay, understood. Sounds good.
So, okay, I guess maybe I just completely misunderstood what the in lieu of fee was for. And it sounds like, and you can correct me where I'm wrong, if they give you 100% in cash, it's going to go on an account, maybe a general account or something, and maybe not go toward trees. And so we need.
No,
to
I mean, it
set
goes
aside-
in, so let me just back up.
Yeah.
So when we started the conversation, Commissioner Jacobson expressed concern that $55,000 to just remove 55 trees would potentially not be, and I don't want to put words in the commissioner's mouth, didn't seem like an equitable removal of trees. And so then the commission got into a discussion about, well, what's a fair way to make up for the significant loss of the urban forest? And then we're in this discussion about,
So I guess.
well, hold on, let me. So then the question is, okay, if we take the money and it doesn't just go into the general fund, there's a dedicated account for these trees that we put the money in. So then the question is, to make up for the loss of the urban forest, instead of just paying the money that the city, now that I'm understanding what the commission's saying, that within the next 2 years that we would take the money and immediately try to identify 27 places to plant the trees. So that's where we're at as of right now. That's my understanding.
Okay, so.
Uh,
So my question, I guess, was, or just- maybe I didn't get it out clear enough. What I'm asking is the city would not use 100% of those funds, the in lieu of funds, to replant, to find and do this work on their own and
So-
find the places to plant those.
Through the chair, when the in lieu fee is accepted, it's put it into a dedicated account for tree replacement. So the entirety, the 100% of it would be used to replace trees, not.
So your ask is that work go back to TAMC as opposed to
No,
staff to do
no,
that?
my proposal is that $55,000 goes into the tree fund. It could sit there for 30 years.
Got it.
So we're losing 55 trees. So I would like to see 50% of those replaced during this construction period,
yes,
whether it be
I
2
agree.
years or 3 years.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I think, and to kind of add on to that, right now we have, I think, about $250,000, $300,000 in our tree fund from deferred payments that have been made over the last few years. So what we're trying to do is say, let's speed up the execution of that a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Commissioner
the clarity.
St. John.
Yeah. Guido, I have a little problem with your wording.
That,
Maybe-
you're on the commission, you guys can change it. I was just trying to help you guys out. So whatever wording,
Okay.
it's really for the commission.
I think you just fixed it for me.
Trying to do this on the fly, so just try to do
Right.
the best we can, so.
I think our city regulations allow a replanting at 2-for-1 or a mitigation fee,
That's correct.
an in lieu of replanting fee. And it was agreed that the in lieu of planting fee for this tree removal permit would be $1,000 per removed tree. And that's where the $55,000 comes.
That's correct.
But I don't think the ordinance or the wording goes any further than that, saying that, oh, and by the way, you have to work with us on finding a spot, a very good spot for you to spend, you
Right,
to
and that-
spend the money.
And then that's why right now they just pointed out, like, the way I originally had phrased it, they correctly pointed out, well, how does that work out and where do we, so that's why
Right.
the commission is,
Yeah.
well, then we should just have staff identify where to put those trees, right?
Right,
So-
so I think you've got it written more clearly now. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So if I can just ask for clarity, so this is not a proposed condition on the permit to TAMC, because we're not obligating TAMC to have any involvement, and this is like direction to staff, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, so it doesn't, so the motion is just stating the commission's intent. It's just memorializing this direction to staff.
no, it still so it becomes I believe it becomes a condition of the permit, but in this case, because it is because it is being tasked, the condition is not, the condition is it's on the city to perform, not TAMC. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it
No,
doesn't
that's
really
a good
belong in the
point. That's a good point.
And it's
I mean, we're gonna follow whatever the commission tells us to do. We understand the intent. We'll work with the Fortag folks to implement it. We understand the intent, which is to plant trees, if that's the intent of the motion from Commissioner Jacobson. So,
Seth, if understanding the intent that we're trying to get across here from the commission, is there a different way to word this that satisfies you on the legal side?
You could do it a couple ways. I mean, what Guido, I think, just said was, staff takes direction sort of informally in these settings from the commission all the time. And I think he's saying you can trust staff to take this direction and work with it. If you want to memorialize it, you can put it in the motion. And it just states the commission's intent, concurrent with approving the permit, but it doesn't become a condition of the permit that is an obligation of the permittee.
Right. So could
So
it?
you can leave
So
it, but you might want to clarify that the city will,
Right.
yeah.
So if we did it this way, we have the recommended motion is paragraph 1. And then the second part would be concurrent to the motion. The planning commission directs the city staff to. So I mean, I like the idea of adding the concurrent to that. And I do want to have it in the motion. I understand that I trust the staff, but I actually want to I do want to memorialize this specifically because it's not that it's precedent setting, but it sort of is in some ways because we've been allowing this account to grow, which is nice. We have an account, but we're not spending it and we're not actually doing things with the money. And so we've been accumulating money now for a few years and we're not spending it. And the intent.
We're not planting
Right.
trees.
And the intention of the tree committee, which does kind of fall up underneath the planning commission, is to improve our landscaping and our habitat and our environment. And so without memorializing it, we've just allowed this money to just get set into the pot. And thankfully it's not being reobligated, but so does the wording the way that he has it written, would that
That's fine.
satisfy the needs?
Yeah.
I
Sounds
have
good.
a question on the first part of the recommended motion.
Okay.
Approving removal of up to 55 trees. Now that we've identified 55 trees, then this up to is kind of ambiguity, should not be there.
But the tree committee, I represent the commission on the tree committee. And the tree committee requested that even during construction, if they find an opportunity to save another tree, that it's within their obligation. Okay, so the removal, right now, what we're not saying is that we're approving the removal of 56 or, 55 or more trees. We're saying up to 55 trees because they might save another one. It's possible during the 2-year construction period, or early, this summer, to actually save another tree.
But
So do you object to the up to? You want to take that out and make it an absolute? Why?
it is that it leads to ambiguity up to.
Yeah, but the ambiguity is in our favor. If they find a tree to save and it's only 54, I'm happy. I'm very proud and happy that they.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess that'd be my point is, I think as Commissioner St. John has summarized what the tree committee's findings are, and I don't know if you had a chance to read their report, is in the end, the current design, which is not at 100%, is that they have identified 55 trees at this point that need to be removed. If, as they go from 60 to 90% design, they realize that there is another tree that they could save, it would drop to 54. So the idea is that we can't remove more than 55 because that's currently what's been identified as the trees to be removed. But if for some reason something can be saved, then we would remove that down and it would go to 54. It doesn't mean that we expect that to happen at this point because I think the design are been mapped out pretty well. But there is a slim chance, and I think that's what the tree committee was trying to emphasize, is that if there's any chance to save some additional trees, instead of doing that, we would rather save a tree than plant 2 trees.
But we have to start with a permit at a T is equal to 0. And today the T is equal to 0 is 55 as of the 70% design. But
I don't want to force them to remove 55 trees if they don't have to. And I
Right.
guess that's the point.
Because that's the permit. If it was an absolute number, then it's an absolute number. You know, but right now it is a quasi number that's pretty solid. But we would accept it going down. That is in the favor, all parties benefit. If it becomes 54 or 53. So I say we leave it as up to.
I mean, does that make sense? Or do you want to, do you still, because we can discuss it and see if anybody else wants to change it.
It does. And the next part is tree subject to findings. Is it subject to findings or as per findings? Because findings are there.
Subject or per to, either way,
As per findings.
as per,
Or
sure,
I'm fine
findings
with
and
changing
conditions
it.
of
If we can change it to as per.
sure.
That's all.
Has E findings, as the findings. Could have put just ZE as the findings.
I'm sorry.
Nothing. Per is fine. All right, any more comments? Commissioner Chang?
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, the $55,000 for 55 trees, is that right? So
That-
it's 54 trees, it will cut down to 54,000. So it's 1,000 per tree. Okay. The conditions, I still feel maybe need to be more specific. Replanting of trees in the city. And I thought maybe you could add another condition is at least 50% of the tree. And of the replacement tree to be planted within half a mile of the project site.
No,
No,
I mean, I would say no. Number one, this isn't a condition. It's just a caveat that's in the motion. So a condition would be put on Fortag or TAMC. This isn't theirs. This is more direction to the staff, to the city.
okay.
So it's really not a condition.
So I think.
But the other thing is that there's plenty of trees out there where this project is taking place. So I'd rather see the trees be planted other places in the city that would be beneficial to the city.
Well, if for the environmental factors to be considered, if I remove trees in that area, I'd like to see tree replanted around the area, not somewhere else in the city.
So
If it's
That's a
along
whole different
California
deal then.
Avenue, and I want to see tree planted in another part of the city.
So I think I'm going to add to this. I understand what you're saying, and the two
Yeah.
things I'm going to add to this are, number one, I think it is endemic to think back 30 years to 1995. And this was the main cantonment area. And the overwhelming majority of the trees that are in this corridor, even in the Cypress Knolls area,
We're not there.
we're not there. What's happened is we've had 30 years of undeveloped growth of the habitat. And it's not a right or a wrong. That's just the fact of what's happened. And so there are areas, and I'll give an example. If you go down Third Avenue from there, you go down about a block, there's a playground that exists. That was one of it literally is 90% overgrown now with trees. And it's like the playground, the trees are literally overgrowing the playground equipment now. And that's what's happened with 25 years of growth. And so I think it's hard to envision what was there 25 years ago, because especially you just moved here 2 years ago.
Mhm.
So you don't have that visual point of where things were before. Again, it doesn't make it wrong, but I think that thinking back to where the city is and where we're trying to do, there are a lot of other areas in the city where we don't have the trees right now where we could make better use of it. Not that area isn't good, but we've already got a saturation there. In addition, what's going to happen is when we get to Cypress Knolls, that's going to change that entire complexion of that area anyway. And I think, especially in the Cypress Knolls, where a number of these trees are coming from, are we're going to end up readdressing the entire landscaping plan of Cypress Knolls at the time, and there are going to be a sizable number of tree issues that come up with Cypress Knolls because it has become so overgrown there. Again, it's not a topic for this tree permit, but I want to give you some context of the area. And then I think the same thing on 8th Avenue. You've got the Gilia population that exists in that low-lying area between the Marina Equestrian Center and 8th. There are very few areas that are within the city boundary that are owned by the city that makes sense to do that. A number of the open areas that are around the 8th and 9th Avenue corridor that aren't developed yet, where we could replant trees. This is what I was saying before, actually still belong to Shea or belong to MTWD. And when we get to development there of those areas, that also is going to address the landscaping in those areas. And so if we kind of try to put something within a half mile of that corridor on either side, we're kind of restricting ourselves to areas that don't necessarily, may not provide the best bang for the buck on return on investment of the trees. And I think that there are some other areas. The important thing is that we're getting, I think, the best use of and planting of the trees that most benefit the city. And I think what we're trying to do is say, we want the city to do that. And we trust that the city staff and more specific public works are going to come in and make that recommendation of where those are going to go. And it could be that some of them are right along that corridor, but I think we leave it open to the city, because if we try to restrict that at this point, I think we're already restricting it by saying we want 50% spent. If we try to drive it even more, are we starting to hamstring the city? And that's not the intent. The intent is we actually want the city to speed up putting the trees in.
Okay.
But I mean, I think that's my vision of what I see Commissioner Jacobson's proposal.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, so we have a motion in front of us. We've said our piece. Anybody want to make a motion? Commissioner Rana, yes.
I'll make the motion.
Commissioner Rana said first.
Oh, okay.
It's the second time tonight. I just totally usurped you, Commissioner, but we'll let you second it.
Okay, I move to adopt Planning Commission Resolution 2025-13, approving removal of up to 55 trees as per findings, conditions of approval, and consistency with the project. EIR certified by Transportation Agency of Monterey County, TMC, in 2019, SCH number 2019-060053. 50% of the mitigation fee will go towards replanting of trees in the city within the planned construction period, which will be an obligation of the city staff to implement.
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner St. John seconds the motion.
Chair,
Commissioner Rana?
before we hold a vote, I just wanted to give Guido a chance. Guido, did you want to recommend that this actually be a condition, or do you think we've moved past that?
Well, they've already made their motion, so.
No, that doesn't matter. You can discuss a motion while it's on the table. I'm just wondering if you had an opinion, given the recent dialogue, that should be a condition now, or if it stands as part of the motion.
I mean, it's always my preference to make it as a condition so that the applicant follows through with staff. Obviously, we work very closely with the applicants, but it's entirely up to the commission, so.
I just wonder if there should be, if the second part of the motion here then should be rewritten to clearly state whatever role the applicant has in making sure that piece occurs, or if you think it clearly states that already.
Does the applicant have any responsibility?
No, I don't
think they
we're
do.
putting any responsibility
Well, I think,
on the
let
applicant.
me let's ask the applicant. I mean, all right, so we pause this for a second, we open it back up. Reading how we have this written right now, and kind of understanding that this goes back to some of the issues from before that we didn't get a chance to really discuss a lot of this. So we're kind of dealing with a lot of this right now. We know it's not necessarily you. What do you think?
I mean, maybe we could reiterate the in lieu fee, like the ordinance that allows for this as an option. Because yeah, I'm still, I don't know how we
Through-
would identify.
Yes, Phil.
Yes, as the
locations for
project
the
planner, I
tree.
would prefer that it remain a part of the motion and direction to the city staff because what TMC's role in implementing a condition of approval like that would be unclear. It's kind of, once we've decided to accept the mitigation fee, it's then our responsibility to execute it and make sure that it gets implemented. And the direction I'm hearing from the commission today is that that needs to be accelerated based on the previous fees that we've already collected and make sure that they get planted in a timely manner.
So if we did that and we added kind of a friendly amendment to this and said, which will be an obligation of the city staff to implement once paid by Fortag. Which then shows that they've paid us, the city, and then the city takes on that obligation.
And you're out.
Again, we could change this and go back and have discussions like Frog Pond.
It is the original move and accept the friendly amendment.
Commissioner Rana, do you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a friendly amendment. It's been approved. Commissioner St. John, do you still second the motion?
I don't. I'm having trouble seeing where the friendly amendment has been.
He added once paid at the end.
Oh, once paid. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we have a friendly amendment. It has been approved and has been seconded.
Commissioner Rana,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice Chair Walton,
Yes.
Chair Woodson,
Yes.
Commissioner St. John,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Could have been harder, could have been easier. In the end, I think the four-track trail across the board is interesting. I think that it is good for our community. It will be once it's all built. Sometimes I have a hard time getting around construction in California and trying to rationalize 750,000 per 1/10 of a mile for a recreation trail. That's a lot of money. But it's just the way things are. And I feel much more comfortable in the end. And I use Frog Pond as an example. The real one that I think about is the little spur block on Fremont connecting to the middle transportation hub that you added in. So I think this entire section is better than some of the other compromises that have had to be made across the trail to kind of keep things moving forward. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for getting around to our section of it. I think we've been waiting. Some of us who use the trail system have been, and we watching how this goes, have been waiting for it to get to our city and not just the main part in Monterey and Seaside areas. So, and Canyon Del Rey. All right, so that includes the public hearing portion of it. I think we have a couple other things you don't have to stick around unless you really want to hear about the housing toolkit. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so informational items we have tonight are economical housing toolkit and meeting start time.
Yep. So we have Bryce from Rincon. As the commission's aware, we've been actively working towards knocking out as many of our house and element programs as possible. And I don't have the exact number, but I think this is program 2.3 of our housing element. When we worked on our housing element, the commission added this program to our work plan to say what are some ways that the city could help the development community by building housing, but doing so in a more economical way. So that this is the research that Bryce has prepared, and I'll pass it off to him.
Awesome. Thank you, Guido. Good evening, Chair Woodson and Commissioners. My name is Bryce Haney. I'm a planner with Rincon Consultants. Here tonight, as Guido said, to present the Economical Housing Toolkit that we introduced back in August. And again, this is work as part of the city's broader housing element implementation efforts that are focused on making housing more affordable, more efficient to build, and more feasible in Marina. So tonight, let's make sure my slides are advancing here. There we go. Tonight, I'll give a quick recap on the housing element implementation effort that Rincon was tasked with, and then I'll walk through some of the key insights of the Economical Housing Toolkit. So the toolkit will include a summary of does include a summary of the drivers of the high residential construction costs, a set of modular construction techniques that are gaining traction in California, and then some of the cutting edge construction methods that we see a little bit further out on the horizon. And then I'll discuss the role that local jurisdictions like Marina can play in supporting these new techniques. So once again, this project was funded through HCD's REAP 2.0 grant, which provides resources to cities to implement housing element programs. So Rincon was tasked with helping the city implement 2 of these. So that's program 1.4, directing the city to encourage the development of housing on properties of faith-based and other institutions like schools and community organizations. And then program 2.3 directs the city to explore the present information on innovative housing types and construction techniques with the potential to reduce costs and speed up housing delivery. So we're calling this the Economical Housing Toolkit. The final product, which is in your packet, is an engaging educational toolkit intended to inform city staff and decision makers on new construction techniques that may be utilized as new development projects come into the Community Development Department. Each construction method is presented in a consistent, easy to scan format, which includes a brief explanation of how that construction technique works, its main advantages and limitations, and then the types of projects that it's best suited for. It's intended to be a quick reference guide, and it features links to further resources and case study projects. So these 2 programs are an important part of the city's eligibility for the state's pro-housing designation, which gives the city an edge when applying to larger state grants for housing-focused community benefit projects, infrastructure projects, public transit improvements. So yeah, that's the general overview of the broader project, and then we can get into some of the details of the toolkit in front of you. So before we jump into some of those construction methods themselves, it's worth asking, why is it so expensive to build housing in California to begin with? There's a great study by the RAND Corporation in 2025 that compared the cost of construction for multifamily residential projects in California, Colorado, and Texas. And the differences are pretty dramatic. On average, disregarding the cost of land, it costs about $430,000 to build a single market rate apartment in California. In Colorado, that number drops to around $240,000. And in Texas, it's closer to $150,000. So we're talking about construction costs in California that are nearly 3 times higher here than they are in Texas. So for affordable housing projects, that gap is even larger. Affordable projects in California cost more than 4 times as much as they do in Texas. So what's driving these differences? First are the hard construction costs. That's basically the cost of material and labor to build the physical structure. Hard costs in California are about 2.2 times higher than they are in other states. And some of that difference is the result of higher standards that we can't really, get around. And that, is using more materials or specialized materials for seismic safety and energy efficiency. But other parts of that hard costs are similarly kind of intractable. Hard costs for construction labor. So for market rate projects, labor cost differences explain about 10% of the cost gap between California and Texas. But for affordable housing, when prevailing wages are required, labor can account for 25 to 35% of that difference. Another kind of major factor are soft costs. These are architectural and engineering services fees, financing, permits, and development fees. So in California, those soft costs are nearly 4 times higher than they are in Texas. Local development and impact fees are about $30,000 per unit in California, compared to roughly $12,000 in Colorado and only about $800 in Texas. That's per unit. In some California cities, those fees make up to more than 10% of the total construction costs, total project costs. And that's largely due to California cities' reliance on those development fees to pay for infrastructure improvements that are required to serve the project. So alternately, in Texas, the property tax structure actually provides funding for infrastructure improvements. So it's kind of uncoupled from development impact fees and individual projects. And then the third major factor, possibly the most important, is the development timeline. A privately financed multifamily project that might take a little over a year or a little over 2 years from start to finish in Texas often takes more than 4 years in California. Longer timelines mean higher land carrying costs, more time to pay for labor and equipment on site, significantly higher financing and interest costs. And over the life of the project, those delays compound and push overall costs higher. So shifting gears now, we can recap some of these innovative construction methods. So part of the solution to those high housing costs and high housing construction costs lie in innovations in the construction industry, which have enabled developers to build housing faster with lower costs and with less waste. So some of those methods that we're going to talk about are commonly used today throughout the state. So those are flat pack cabins used for transitional and interim housing to combat homelessness, prefabricated and modular single units that are used for ADUs and some custom single family homes, and then modular construction that's often used for large scale multifamily projects. So looking ahead a little further out, we're seeing regulatory advancements that may allow single stair construction in California, which we'll talk about in a bit. Mass timber is another construction method that's gaining traction for larger multifamily projects. And there's even been some pilot programs using 3D printing to rapidly build single family units. So we'll get into these construction methods and discuss some of the advantages, starting with flat pack cabins. So these are essentially prefabricated micro units, anywhere from 64 square feet for an 8x8 cabin to 200 square feet. They usually have a steel frame with insulated composite plastic walls. Some of these units can be configured with bathrooms, and all of the units will typically be fitted with heating, air conditioning, and electricity. So there's multiple manufacturers of these types of units in California, two of the biggest being Pallet Shelter and Boss Cubes, which have supplied projects throughout the state. And these are the lowest cost solutions that we'll cover today. The units themselves cost as low as $8,000 per unit. And then, altogether, these tiny home communities that you may have seen that utilize these units typically cost between $35,000 to $55,000 per unit to design and build. So some of the advantages, these units are rapidly deployable for disaster relief and transitional housing. They're small, lightweight structures that they allow flexible arrangements at high densities on small kind of constrained sites. And they offer secure, longer-term individual living spaces in comparison to traditional congregate shelter models where a resident might not have a door or a private space to themselves. So like I said, these are typically used in tiny home village transitional shelters like the Dignity Moves tiny home village in Santa Barbara and the Serenity Homes in Baldwin Park. So these are communities that feature on-site security, shared laundry, bathrooms, shower facilities, and they offer supportive social services on-site, usually operated by a local nonprofit. So next, we'll kind of scale up slightly and talk about these permanent prefabricated single units. These come in two main forms. These are panelized units where flat sections of the structures are built in a factory and then shipped to the project site where they're assembled. And then volumetric modular units where the entire unit is built in a factory and then delivered to the project site, almost complete with, internal finishes, and then they use a crane to lower it onto the site. Costs for these type of units range widely from about $60,000 per unit to $350,000 per unit. And that just depends on the size of the unit, different finishes and configurations. So that's just the cost for the unit itself. But site prep work like foundations and utility connections are an additional cost that, again, varies widely depending on the site. Like I said, they can be installed on site much faster than a traditional structure can be built. They're regulated under HCD's factory built housing program, where the modular units are inspected at the factory. And that kind of allows local building officials to limit their review just to the site preparation and final installation of the unit instead of inspection of the unit itself. So another advantage of these is that many manufacturers offer many manufacturers of the units themselves offer in-house turnkey services, which cover the design, permitting, and installation of the unit. So it gives property owners kind of a one-stop shop instead of working with many different contractors and professionals. This is a good time to discuss the differences between modular housing and more traditional manufactured homes. Traditional manufactured homes are built to federal building standards, which are established by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. They have to include a permanent steel chassis that allows them to be transported easily, and they're regulated by uniform national standards that override local building codes. So on the other hand, modular units are placed on permanent foundations and they're not intended to be moved. Modular construction is subject to local building codes, including Title 24 regulations for green building and energy efficiency. And then they're regulated, as I said, by the California's by HCD under the Factory Built Housing Program. And then as manufactured units are legally considered personal property like a car or RV, but modular units are considered real property like any other site-built home. And lastly, these units are really flexible. They can be used as a single backyard ADU or grouped together into pocket neighborhoods or clusters of smaller single-family homes. And then prefab ADUs are already common across California. We see projects like the Valley View Senior Apartments in American Canyon. And they show that projects like that show that they can scale into these high-quality multifamily developments. Next, we're going to jump up in scale once again to look at modular construction for multifamily projects. So with this method, entire apartment units are built and finished off-site in a factory and then stacked at the project site to form a larger building. Cost for these can be 10 to 20% lower than traditional builds. That's not a super reliable number, just because it depends on site conditions and developer financing and all this type of thing. But again, the real benefit for developers is the development timeline and the predictability of that timeline. So an advantage, again, with the modular construction techniques is that site prep work, like utility connections and foundations, can be laid while the individual units are built offsite in the factory. And then builders can use that and set a date for those units to be delivered to the site, and the building can go up much faster than up to 50% faster than traditional site built construction. Additionally, because of the more precise factory construction, there's typically much less wasted material than traditional site built methods, which is an area of savings as well. And then there's multiple manufacturers throughout the US that serve large-scale builders in California. So two of these are Guerdon and Autoval, and then there's a smaller but still widely known local company called Harbinger based in Vallejo, California. And all those companies have a proven track record of delivering multifamily housing projects. There's several local examples of projects that utilized modular construction. Parkside Manor and Haciendas 3 in Salinas, as well as multiple projects in San Jose and American Canyon. So yeah, these projects just demonstrate the value of modular construction as a tool in the toolbox for affordable housing developers. And yeah, next I'll cover some of the latest construction methods that are gaining traction in California, but may still be a little bit further out from Marina. So one of the most exciting changes on the horizon is reform around these single stair buildings. So currently the state building code requires 2 stairwells in buildings over 3 stories. That's intended to increase safety in the event of a fire. But numerous recent studies of buildings in New York and Europe have shown that single stair buildings are just as safe as 2-stair buildings, as long as certain safety measures are in place. So things like fireproof doors, pressurized stairwells, and sprinkler systems. But there's some legislative reform coming in California. AB 835, which I believe passed in 2024, directed the state to create building standards that allow single-stair mid-rise apartment buildings by 2028. So this is great because single-stair buildings are often less costly to build just because of the simpler structure. And the floor area that's freed up by eliminating a stairwell and those long hallways can enable larger, kind of family-friendly apartment units with more natural light and ventilation. So this reform could be kind of a real game changer for these missing middle housing types, where on smaller lots where other building types are infeasible. So here's just kind of a comparison example of a single stair building and a 2-stair building with this, it's called a double loaded corridor. So in the diagram on the left, you can see that eliminating a stairwell and these long hallways that are shown in orange on the left diagram, you can dramatically shrink the footprint of the building while providing light and ventilation to each unit on 2 sides instead of 1. So another emerging technology is mass timber or cross-laminated timber, or CLT, which involves the use of engineered wood panels that can replace steel and concrete in mid to high-rise buildings. So mass timber buildings can be built quite quickly, taking advantage of some of those off-site manufacturing of the building components, that technique that we've been talking about. And they're environmentally friendly, with wood harvested from sustainably managed forests, which sequester atmospheric carbon. Mass timber is already appearing in California with projects like the Kind apartments in Sacramento or the super bungalows in Los Angeles, which are shown here. So mass timber construction can be cost competitive depending on the type of project, but not as many builders have used mass timber or CLT in smaller projects in California yet. Mass timber has been used in quite large projects in the Pacific Northwest, where the supply lines of timber and these CLT projects are much stronger. And then finally, so 3D printed housing. This method involves large robotic printers which extrude a concrete mixture to form the interior and exterior walls of the structure. Companies like Icon, who manufacture these printers, are working with home builders like Lennar to print the vertical walls of a single-family house in a matter of days. And proponents estimate that 3D printing could reduce hard construction costs by up to 40%. Currently, residential 3D printing is allowed in California on a case-by-case basis via the California Residential Code Alternative Methods provisions. But the buildings require more thorough review by an engineer to ensure that the design and materials can withstand earthquakes and other structural loads. California's first 3D printed home was built in Redding in 2023. So it's still, really early stages, but it's one to watch closely as the technology develops. So what can Marina do? There's several concrete steps that can, help make it easier for developers to use some of these innovative techniques. One would be pre-certify some modular ADU designs and multifamily designs that can reduce permitting delays. The city can train staff on reviewing and inspecting factory-built housing according to HCD's typical standards. And then the city can codify acceptance of prefabricated products that meet the performance standards that the city typically uses for traditionally built structures. The city can define and enable cottage clusters in the zoning ordinance. And then the city could also promote the use of tools like SB 9 or SB 684 to support small lot housing, on the kind of smaller lots in lower density neighborhoods. So to wrap up, Marina has a great opportunity to lead on housing innovation, pairing city actions with construction innovations in the toolkit. The city can make real progress towards housing affordability and availability. So thanks for your time. I'd be happy to do my best to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Bryce, for that update. I think that was adding in. I know there were a number of issues that were raised in previous commission meetings on kind of wanted to look at some of those areas that you highlighted today. So it's actually interesting to me. I mean, I was thinking about some of the modular pieces and how we could use them here, and could go back to trees. That a lot of the issues that we have in those areas is we have a development that's opening up, then sure, we may have an open area that we can get heavy equipment into, but we can't necessarily we can't just lift in a modular component, even if it's a single story one, into a lot of areas. And that requires a heavy lift crane with in some cases, a very long span width that's going to be needed to move those into position. So it's interesting when we look at the $8,000 to $10,000 cost, even if we went with a larger one, how does that rental, because that rental becomes $10,000 a day for a crane to come on site. And for me, what I kind of wonder now is, I hadn't thought about this before. I think it's about once a month or once every 2 months, I'll just be driving out on one and I will see a heavy lift crane that's come down from San Jose. That's usually for a large scale building. And I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, okay, what is that 50 or 70 ton crane sitting on Route 1 doing? What are we building in the area? Because there's a lot of lift capacity on that, and there's not a lot of places. So I hadn't really thought about that until just now of, okay, well, I wonder if that's going to support these modular homes, whether it's an ADU or whether it's something for community based. So there are opportunities, but at the same time, it's like, how would we maximize those savings? Because that mobilization install cost becomes pretty significant pretty quickly.
Chair Woodson, if you want to open it for comment, we do have an executive director of a housing group that he could probably provide some further
Absolutely.
input. So.
Thanks, Guido, for.
Guido, thanks for inviting me. And Phil, it's good to see you again. The last time I saw you, we were in Castroville, County. I'm sure they miss you a lot. I'm Jeff Morgan. I'm the president of CHISPA. And obviously, you know, I'm in Say Oaks and Marina Manor. So I've been president for about.
I've been president now for about 2.5 years. Before that, I worked on the first modular affordable housing community, 100% affordable permanent supportive housing in San Jose. It was called Second Street Studios with Gurdon. And we're currently looking at some modular homes for transition age youth in partnership with the Housing Authority over in Soledad. I think it's great that you're putting together a presentation to really look at these kinds of technology. And I can tell you that we put up a building with 135 units that the tower went up in 2 weeks instead of a year or two. Now, there's always issues and quirks, and I could go on and on about that, but I think I have about a minute, so I'll end it there. But I think it's a culture change, but I think it's definitely great that the city is having enough vision and foresight to think about the technologies, because I think it will really help. Thank you.
And I'm going to come back to, is anybody else online who has a comment since I've opened it to public comment?
I don't see anybody. And I would just add, so this also for the commission, the genesis also with this, when we had that joint meeting with the city council, gosh, it's been almost 3 years now. For Cypress Knolls, one of the kind of directions we got from council was look at ways that you could build that missing middle housing with low cost, efficient. So when we eventually roll out the specific plan for Cypress Knolls, this could be a potential option to very quickly and rapidly bring housing to the Cypress Knolls site. So
If we get to a point where we have a approved vision.
exactly.
I mean, I think that's the linchpin right now that's holding up Cypress Knolls is, besides the demolition, the $20 million still left to demolish everything is the bigger ones. We don't have a vision for the build of what we want to put there. I think that's too small to just make a decision and too big to make a decision. So we're stuck in between of, okay, this is the biggest spot we have left. So what are we going to do with it? Different conversation. I mean, I think not 3 years ago, but more importantly, 8 months ago is when you were, well, one of your staff was here. And then I can't remember the name of the other agency that was here.
I forgot, but there was another, we had a affordable housing meeting in May,
Right.
so.
And
Yeah.
I remember he sat, because he sat back like 30 feet over.
Yeah.
So I remember, I can't remember what his name was, but I remember we talked about these issues again and the opportunities. And I think I'm still going to come back to our drainage retention basins, of which we have 30 plus of them around the city. Of those are areas that I still think would be a great way to look on infill development. Maybe we can't do it in all of the areas because some of the retention basins are still being used as detention ponds are still being used in a functional capacity for runoff, but a lot of those are not. And it really still seems like a way that we could use to meet our RENA numbers and at the same time increase our infill across the city. And
Exactly.
so I will make that plug again, that it would be nice if we could find a way to leverage all these infill spots that are literally owned by the city to help meet our numbers. I mean, it's a blessing that, quite frankly, none of the other communities in the region have. Most of them have already filled in those detention basins that they had prior to putting in their sewer systems, and they've gotten rid of them. And we still have them sitting out there.
You know, it's
Yeah.
funny, there was one on my street, Bradley Circle. It was rather large and I don't know how it happened because I just about moved there about this time. So this was 15 years ago anyway, maybe 20. I don't think it's that long, but somehow probably 75% of that hole, I'll call it, got filled in. There's still 25% that looks like it's being used as a pathway, and a modular home was dropped there, and it's there today.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the modular home was there, and then they built the garage to attach the modular home.
All right, so I'm just gonna strange staff action just because it's a more interesting one. Is if we could find out what happened with that parcel. I'm just curious now.
If you can just get with me after the
Yeah,
meeting,
offline,
give me the
it didn't need to be
details.
here, but I'm just curious that if that was part of the city's detention basin system and how that changed.
That is still there says do not park here, city.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get the information after the meeting from the commission.
So it's a road,
So,
retired city employee just kind of dropped his home there. Nobody knew.
and then for the commission, Bryce did allude to, and Bryce, if you want to pull up the faith-based overlay slide, this is part 1 of 2 of Bryce is helping me. We did get some REAP 2.0 money. We do have quite a few faith-based properties in the city, and as one of the programs that Bryce will be helping me with that we'll be bringing back is an overlay zone to identify potentially using faith-based and religious and institutional type uses, some kind of underutilized properties in the city. for potential housing. So Bryce and I will be, I'll have to reach out in terms of when we'll be coming back, but that's another, this is part 1 of 2 of a presentation from Bryce. So, yeah.
Cool. I think Commissioner Rana and Vice Chair Walton. Just go in that order.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have a question for the presenter that we discussed in the presentation drivers, the cost drivers in California as compared to Texas, Colorado. I think one of the cost drivers is demand, because California demand is much higher and it is based on the population density. California has 40 million people and per square mile, the density is 250 people as compared to Texas, 30 million living, 110 people in the square mile. And then there are other cost factors, taxation and other issues. These are the cost increase driving factors. Now, I wish we could get a picture as to these types of housing, these improvements that we discussed, how much saving really it is happening on ground per unit when we use these methods. Because as I said, demand driven. Because of demand, higher cost of land is one of the big factors. And even if we make the construction cheaper, the land cost is a fixed factor which has to be taken into consideration. So that is one point, that if we have a presentation of this nature in future, if we could see the actual saving in cost with each of these construction methods.
Okay.
And also, we have real examples. There are certain type of housing, the modular housing and other types have come up in Salinas and San Jose and all that. Per unit housing cost, how much saving has happened to the buyer?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to defer to the affordable housing community on that. I think Jeff referenced was it a 135 unit project that got built in two, if you want. So in terms of cost savings, you could imagine if that normally takes 18 months to build and it gets done in a month.
The technology varies an awful lot, and so it's a fairly new industry. But the advertised savings around, it really depends. A lot of it's on the means and methods. You have to build modular housing to fit what the factories actually produce to create the right efficiencies. But you can definitely save a lot of time. I know with the Clayton homes, we're working with the city there. The land component is kind of, it's a piece of it, but frankly, it's the infrastructure and the delays and the hard costs that's the biggest issue for us. We save money because it's a factory built, so it's not hiring trades doing wages at the site. So the wages in Factory OS, one of the modulars actually does prevailing wage with the carpenters union. So they actually do, but it's just a different model. So it's really hard to say, but one thing I'll say, we're looking at some modules that we're putting up for about, you could do about $90,000 from Clayton Homes. They have about 42 factories. So they're single room, but they're very, very fast to build. And so part of that too is you have transition age youth that are homeless now. Soledad wants to put those units up quickly. So it's going to be more efficient, but I'm not sure that right now that the costs are dialed in where it's going to be a big difference. What I've seen, it hasn't been a big difference in the hard costs, but it's been a big difference in carrying costs if you think about financing. And also we don't go through the same inspections, as he said, because it's all done by HCD. So they're just not, the manufactured homes and the volumetric modular are are just evaluated differently. And that's a culture change too. So that would be something the building officials would become more educated on if they haven't already. I don't know if that answers your question, but the technology is still evolving.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Walton.
My question is for the staff. What relationship do you have with HUD, with the Housing and Urban Development people?
Well, Darby came and spoke to the commission about the CDBG money that we're gonna be getting. That is money that comes from HUD. But HUD is more, I don't normally get involved with HUD type work,
So
so.
is it possible? Okay, great, thank you, because my question is while we're on the topic of affordable housing, and I love that we are working toward some kind of more affordable building standards, but the property, like we talked about not too long ago, is still very high. So you can go get a $300,000 house and pop it on a $700,000 property and still have to pay $1 million to stay there. If I'm not wrong. So my question is with respect to HUD and some of that affordability, and the city, perhaps the city can develop a relationship with HUD, figure out how to buy some of those $1 homes that only governments can do, and start to put that on the city so that people can buy those homes from the
Sure.
city directly, deed restricted and all those kind of things.
Sure.
And can we bake that into a portion of this, or?
Yeah, I mean, that could be, yeah, and we could certainly take a look at that.
Thank you,
And we could also add it in as part of the general plan also.
thank you.
Yes, so, yeah, that's.
Ellen.
Sorry, I'm just thinking. Hey, every 6 months, we get up here and we have this great conversation. And then it's going to be 6 more months. And then in the back of my head, I think we've made this great progress. We've had these great conversations on the planning commission and with the staff, and we get great developers and people who have been working in the region. And then 6 more months goes by. And so I guess my question to staff, Guido, is, I mean, you end up being the middleman between us and the city council. And then it goes to the city council and they have an agenda that is a mile long, and the progress ends up being very slow, even though we would like to see it faster because, well, we're one-sided. We're the planning commission. Our side is, hey, development, zoning, build this stuff. It'd be great. And then the council looks at it and says, well, you know, we've got 1,000 things. We've got parks and streets and budgeting and all these other things that are on the agenda. And so how do we bridge? And I don't think there's an answer today. I know there's not an answer. How do we bridge this kind of definitional gap that exists between planning commission and what we want? And we could give you staff direction, and that's great. But that doesn't necessarily solve the issue that it then gets hung up. How can we work more closely with the city council to try to emphasize that we're not just the planning commission sitting here. This is a priority to us, and it's something that we really would like you to look at more closely than just, okay, we'll put it on the agenda whenever we get to it. Like I said, I don't know if there isn't an answer tonight on how to do this, but I think that would be, if I had direction to staff tonight, I would like to figure out a way, because I just feel like I've sat here and over 4 years now, I've listened to variations of this presentation get better, get more refined as the systems get better. But yet I then turn around and I look in the city and we're in the same part and we're at the same point. And now we have an approved arena plan and we have a regional housing element and our timeline is ticking. And all of a sudden we're going to be 4 years down the road and we're going to start coming up on writing the next arena, and then we're going to look around and say, what did we do? And we have these great ideas, but how did we actually get them implemented? And if we're looking at a 12 to 18 month turnaround time, then if you start back planning of what we have to do to get there, we're quickly eating into all that good that we've built up into our housing element on actually getting these things executed. And that's,
So I would just politely say that I have a different perspective. I feel like the planning commission and city council are actually being very progressive, that the policies that you guys have helped implement have helped me apply for the pro housing designation, which we're about to get, which makes us eligible for PIP funding. I had a meeting with RINCON, another 2 RINCON staff members. If we're able to get that PIP money, we're going to actually be able to partner with affordable housing developers to rehab and preserve existing housing. But I would strongly disagree that these are not fruitful conversations, because you adopt these policies and procedures, the council approves them. We got our housing element certified. We're going to get pro housing. We're getting PIP funding, which can then be used to work with the affordable housing community. So it's
I'm not saying-
not that we're not having fruitful conversations. The work that you're doing here, you might not see it because you're only seeing it every couple of weeks, but all the work that you guys have been doing and the council has been doing is actually building towards other stuff that we're working on. So and then also these conversations have been fruitful because we were able to get PLHA money. And if you recall, we had a gentleman who lives in Marina, who works for HCD, who came and spoke to the commission about 2 years ago. We used that PLHA money to have pre-approved ADU plans, which a number of customers have used. And that came about from these commission discussions. So I would just say that I hear what you're saying, but there's been a lot that's going on.
And I'm not
So,
saying it
yeah.
hasn't been.
So-
I mean, that wasn't my point. Yes, I know we're making progress by getting the housing element done. And one of the first ones in the county to get it reapproved as quickly as we did, it opened up grant money that first year that we were able to apply for, that other counties or other communities in our area weren't able to apply for. So I get that completely. And maybe that's the issue. Maybe it's the idea of, okay, do we have some place where we've put this together to say, okay, here are all the elements that here's at the high level, here's our housing element. Here are all the things that become a byproduct or a product on a kind of go to market kind of way of looking at things, of what have we achieved based on that these then keep building. And this is laying the foundation for this. This then becomes a building block that opens up this other capability. And yes, there is a point. You get to see it every day because it's your full-time profession. And we get to see it for a couple hours every month.
Yeah.
And so we don't necessarily get the chance to see that. And then there's the city council that has their time and their bigger agenda. And we are a small part. This is a small part of a bigger, how do you run a city? And so maybe it's just the.
Well, I can certainly bring back to the commission in a couple of weeks, just kind of how all your work has done is I can certainly do that, Chair.
I think it's just for us. I think it's
yeah.
also, and I'll let him speak again. I think it's also for the community in whole. So that they can see how all this is, how everything we're doing is not just, hey, we're getting better. It's how are we doing this and what are the results and what are these gates that are opening up and they're making it better. And it does not have to be in 2 weeks, Guido.
You know, what's kind of interesting is you were saying that and was listening to Guido. So many of the things that used to come before us no longer come before us because now it's just part of an administrative process because that authority has been shifted. So there could be things going on in this regard
Oh, and
that
actually,
we don't know anything about it.
Actually, so that's a really good point. So in the last year, Allison and Nick, before they both left, probably worked on 6 or 7 projects, to your point, that because the council and commission adopted objective zoning standards, those are now done at a staff level. And so in terms of, to your points, maybe I need to kind of show all that. Yeah, and so for example, that project that's going to get built off of Hillcrest, that 15-unit project, that was a project that Allison worked at a staff level. There was no public hearings, and that normally would take 2-3 years of public meetings to get through. That got done in a year, right? So that's example, like you're saying, of maybe doing a better job of explaining to the commission Right, exactly. So,
So you had another comment, I mean, please, kind of, we've been kind of an open public group, I mean.
I don't know this is procedure, but it's just
I-
us.
yes.
I just wanted to say, for me, the laws have gotten so much more friendly towards building affordable housing since I started this 20 years ago. And funding is about the only thing that really stops us. And frankly, I've just taken a lot of satisfaction on each project at a time. At Junsei, I know some folks who were homeless living in a car that got housed. And I think one of them may have even testified here.
Yeah.
So I kind of take my satisfaction one key at a time because there's never enough funding. But I think what you're doing with each individual project as it comes up on a case by case basis and the speed with which you do it is having a real impact. And I can tell you in this community, it's having a big impact.
And I think that's what it comes down to, Guido, is that I'm going to go back to a different issue. I'm going to go to sea level rise. And so Allison creates a sea level rise plan. And we turn around, we get it submitted to the state. The state comes back and says, hey, this is great. We get it approved. And it is in some ways almost a gold standard for the state of this is what you should look like with a plan. And so we've been complimented about that. Well, we're doing the same thing as a community here. And we have a lot of people who care in the community and want to see this. And we know about some of it. But as you can see, we have a very large audience here who is hearing most of the rest of it. But to that point, the city doesn't know that.
Mhm.
And the city doesn't know it, which means that we're not necessarily doing a great job of marketing how well we're being successful to our own residents. It's not popping up with the media and the Monterey Herald or the Carmel Pinecone.
Mhm.
And it's not popping up in the bigger community across the peninsula. It's like, oh, it's Marina. Marina's just the northern suburb and they're kind of the blue collar ones. We're not part of, we're part of Monterey Peninsula, but we're not really part of Monterey
Right.
Peninsula. It's like, no,
Right.
you know something? We are doing things right. And there are a lot of things that the other cities talk about. This is what they want to do, or they don't want to do this, or they have problems with housing in Tarpey Flats and all these other things that are coming up. Yet we are being very successful and we're overcoming those because we've decided that we could take two approaches to this. We could put our hands up and say, yes, but not really in our backyard. Or we could take a very proactive approach and try to solve these issues and say, we have to work together as a community to do this.
Mhm.
And I think it'd be really behoove us in the community if we can find a way. And again, we have a lot on our plate, so I don't want to turn it into this, we have to have all these metrics and everything else that we do. But I do think we can do a better job of selling how does this all integrate together and what are the doors that have been opened just by the RENA approval process itself. That it's not just, okay, we got this approval for these housing units and this is what we want to do. It's like, I don't know, it's opened up millions of dollars of available money that we are using to positively impact our city. Anyway,
Understood.
I've spoken
Understood.
enough. I'll
Understood.
get off my podium. Any other comments from the group? So, all right, that's information number one. You had one more, I think, didn't you?
The start time of the meetings.
Start time of the meetings, and that was, we
So-
wanted to move that.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Nice to meet you all.
So we wanted to move that. It says.
So just some context, just because SEP's on the call as well. So I double checked in the municipal code. In some cities I've worked for, the planning commission and council meetings have to start at a certain time. That's not in our municipal code. For planning commission, I double checked with the deputy city clerk Shep. I said, if the commission goes to go, is there any, no, so it's really a vote of the commission if you're open to starting earlier so we can all get home earlier to our families. So, and maybe I could entice the commission by feeding you guys more. So
Wow, I was
do-
going to go.
I do
early
have
just
budget
because
for
if
that,
you're gonna-
so-
If you're going to eating us
so-
part of it.
Negotiate.
So not filet mignon, but but it's really, but also we want to be respectful of all the commissioners. And if we need to stay till 6:30, we're here as staff to support the commission.
No, I mean, I think we all have talked about it before. I think as a group, we had then looked at being able to start a little bit earlier is feasible as long as we know it ahead of time. I'll go around. I think what we had talked about, what would The last thing I thought was 6, but what was the last time? What was the time I know at one point we discussed even.
Our
starting at 5.
study session started at 5:30. So as long as we're consistent, because when the staff puts in the legal notifications, we just want to make sure we don't miss.
So I'm
We wanna be-
fine with moving it to 5:30. What about the rest of the group? I mean,
Okay. Oh, okay.
so what time would it?
6:00. Okay, well, that's up to the,
So what about the 3 of you? It's just because you're retired. So.
I'm tired of being tired.
Like my VA post that meets at 11 o'clock on Wednesdays in the morning. No, in the morning. And their rationale is that they're all so old that they don't want, who wants them driving at night after dark? I'm like, yeah, but it's really hard to make it there at 11 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how some cities, you're right, some cities do this. They have their city council, their committee and commission meetings in the middle of the day. And I'm like, wow, I love the fact that ours is in the evening and that even if we don't have a lot of people show up, we're giving people an opportunity that doesn't exist in a lot of places. So, so it sounds like right now, based on the current commission and the way it's set up, which is the way it's gonna go, and we'll ask your opinion, Commissioner Wall. I know you can, I know this is your next to last meeting, but I'll give you your input on what you can say like 3 o'clock.
What works for you guys, and with it in mind that there will be future commissioners
Yeah.
with lives, who may have to work until 7 during tax season, and so to get off and be here at 5:30 would mean to lose money.
okay.
But outside of that,
So I think 5:30, so 5:30 sounds out for our commission currently right now. So that makes no sense to like hamstring our own commission that's in place right now, not knowing anybody else. So we're looking at moving it from 6:30 to 6. I'm fine with that. I think that really kind of matches the city council anyway. They do closed session starting at 6. We would just start our meeting at 6. So it actually aligns more to the city council anyway.
Sounds good.
So
And we can always adjust it when we get the new commissioners and whatnot, but definitely appreciate the consideration from the commission. So,
all right. So nothing else? Any announcements?
nope.
Yeah, I have an announcement. I guess I have one. Just as a reminder that, under city guidelines, I have now reached the end of this month, my 2-year official term, because that's the most I can serve consecutively at a time. So I could take a break and come back at some point, potentially if the commission so desired, but I can only serve 2 years consecutively at a time. So I'm out of that. So next 2 weeks, at the next meeting, one of the things that we will have to do is nominate and select a new chair. So.
And vice chair.
And vice chair. And so we need to think about that. And on the vice chair side, right now, just so you know, so Vice Chair Walton's last meeting will be next in 2 weeks. More to come on that in 2 weeks, but, on that side of it, what we can do and what we have done in the past is we have all deferred the vice chair selection until a new commissioner, and the new commissioner tentatively would be the first meeting in February. So we can always make a decision to select one and then defer on the other. But what I wanted to leave you with is, because I think the last couple of years we've just waited until the meeting of, is to give you some time to think about that, especially if you are interested in serving as the chair. So that's my announcement. Any correspondence?
No.
All right, I guess that's it. I really wish this duck would squeak. I'm going to change that in 2 weeks. Meeting adjourned.
Awesome.